we've got Kaitlyn in the great state of Texas here. Kaitlyn, how the heck are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. And I understand you want to talk about the importance of finding local atheist communities. Is that right?
Yeah. I was talking with a friend of mine earlier this morning, and I was talking about how there's an atheist meetup here, and I'm in like the Metroplex and DFW, Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. And so I was telling this friend of mine, and she's international, so there's a lot of stigma around Texas as it is with atheist communities and how evangelical it is here. But I was telling her about how it's crazy that there's like a lot of different communities, and one of the ones I'm a part of, we do a meetup every Wednesday and have dinner at like a local area. And she was surprised because that happens. And I was telling her that like it is kind of an older crowd sometimes, and we are trying to like increase the younger crowd also. But it's really nice to be a part of that. And I started going with my boyfriend, who is atheist, but I didn't know that when I had met him and started going. And I was a theist at these meetings. And one of the gentlemen there, he's married to an evangelical Christian. So it is surprising, but it is comforting knowing that theists can join also, and have those conversations even in person.
Totally. Yeah. It's interesting. I ran across a Facebook post the other day on a page, and I saw a non-believer saying there are no good reasons to believe in a god or gods, and that bugged me because I can think of plenty of good reasons. I can just think of better reasons to not. So the being plugged into communities, having a place to go every Sunday and check in with a bunch of people who care about you and who are like-minded. I mean, that is an extremely attractive thing. In the work that's been done by groups like Recovering from Religion, there's or even there was the clergy project that was going on for years. I don't know if that's still a thing.
Still is, yeah.
But yeah, so you can talk to people who are not just going to churches, but even people who are leading churches who might not believe this stuff anymore, but are still going because being plugged into a community is such a beneficial thing for their lives. So I would absolutely agree with you that whenever possible, that people should make an effort to get plugged into their local skeptic, humanist, atheist groups, meetup groups, what have you. Even the groups, not to toot our own horn around here, but we have that's why we have the Facebook groups that we have for the ACA is to try to create a community in every way that we can. So yeah, that's huge. Were you still a theist when you started going to these meetups?
I was. I was still a theist whenever I started to. This show actually was the first show I called into and kind of sparked my. I went straight basically from being theist to atheist activist pretty quickly, which is surprising to some people, but. Yeah, I was a theist, but I was more of the spiritual, not religious. Like, I don't like the rules of religion and all of that. But it's crazy once having that community was helpful for me during my deconversion and being able to handle the mental parts of it. If that makes sense.
It does. One of the things that I notice is that without community, what shows like this could do is take people away from a community of believers in a certain mythological tradition and then leave them out in the cold. And so now, okay, you've seen behind the curtain maybe, and you now realize that everyone's just kind of going through, or you'd be going through the motions. And now who are you going to hang out with? Who are you going to talk about these issues with? Well, you can join us virtually. Then that's great. and that's really great, because especially when it's not safe to congregate. But you really need to find some place where you can belong and you can be your complete self, your honest self, and not have to lie about who you are. You might not tell everybody everything about you. I don't. But you still want to be able to
Right.
talk about certain issues. And the atheist, traditionally, I would think that the non-believing community hasn't been so good about being a community as opposed to a debunker of claims. And what's nice about the Atheist Community of Austin and other groups like the one that you belong to and others that I've heard about, including the Houston Oasis, which I remember that existing, and I just looked it up, and apparently it's still there, still doing its thing, is that this is a place where people can gather and not just talk about how God is a pretty specious concept, but get together and focus on the things that matter to us as non-believers. And because if you're trying, we've gotten many calls over the years that I've watched and I've participated in, is, okay, now I don't belong to this religious tradition. Now I don't belong to this community, or I'm an outsider inside. What do I do now? Who do I talk to? What do I do? What now? Well, everything that you've ever wanted to do with your life is now, but it can seem lonely, can't it? If you don't have others to share it with.
I've got to ask, what, as a theist, why did you start going to atheist meetups?
I didn't intentionally. So I had met my boyfriend on a dating app, and I didn't know he was atheist. He knew a lot about the Bible, so I thought he was a Christian. And then he started telling me about this group of friends. And then I realized it was an atheist group. And I was like, oh, well, he's just trying.
That's how they get you. That's the old bait and switch.
Yeah. But it was nice having those like really good conversations. So it's not a bad thing at all. Yeah. But in fact, I think it changed my life for the better in the long run. But I didn't intentionally, is the short answer.
I gotcha. It's interesting. Well, and I doubt this is what your boyfriend was doing with any sort of intentionality, but I remember back in my evangelical days, there was a name for a strategy of trying to bring people in through dating. There was actually the term flirt and convert was an actual thing that people talked about of especially among young ladies who I knew, who'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go find some boys to bring into the youth group this way. And at the time it's like, yeah, do whatever you got to do for Jesus, man. But now it's like, it's pretty shitty. But I found myself thinking about this, that I'm always talking to people about, caring about whether or not their beliefs are true, and really, really caring about it, and trying to be consistent in caring about whether or not your beliefs are true. And I increasingly get frustrated with people on the atheist side and in the community who will write believers off as dumb, or of just generally lacking critical thinking skills. Are there dumb theists? Absolutely. Are there theists who lack critical thinking skills? Yes. But you can also find those people in the atheist community and in every community, because those attributes apply to human beings all over the world, right? So it's a thing that we all should be mindful of. This on the one hand, if you're telling somebody, I really think that you'd benefit from caring about whether or not your beliefs are true. I think getting in touch with reality is a good idea, and it's not something to be scared of. Keep in the back of your mind the social pressure that some of these individuals are under, that they may be plugged into communities that are their entire lives. When I became an atheist, when I left Christianity, the church communities that I'd been plugged into for my entire life, some of those people, most of those people never spoke to me again. I had to find a completely new support group, and it was hard. So when you're talking to people, on the one hand, they might be following what you're saying in terms of arguments. They might be, in the back of their mind, they might be going, yeah, I might not have a good reason to believe some of this stuff, but what is this? This is going to devastate my life if I let go of my beliefs, or if I publicly let go of my beliefs. So I just put this out there for people in our community to try to be as empathetic as we can be, because it is not always all about the arguments. I would say it's often not all about the arguments. You know, whether or not we're being effective in communicating in terms of science or philosophy and epistemology, I mean, that we should be trying. But at the same time, remember that you could be an extremely efficient and effective communicator. You could be able to identify bad arguments from a mile away and knock them down. And you might not see everything that's going on in that person's life who you're talking to, and to be compassionate, and recognize that, you know, all of us have blind spots too. So be patient with people when you talk to them. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. That was the whole thing. Soapbox over, everybody. Sorry about that.
I love Kenneth's soapboxes though.
So, I don't know. Well, yeah, that, you know, but I'm glad that you found a community. I mean, you know, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's part of, like, the main reason I wanted to call is just to say, if you think that there's not a community near you, one, there is an online community, but two, also look for them, because I'm a part of one in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and there's several that I know about. And so it's not something that there aren't atheists in Texas. That's just stigmatized because of how religious it is here. But look for groups if you need that support and you can't handle doing it all online, whatever the case is. If it's safe, then find an area that you can go and find a meetup, create a meetup. You know, I know you guys have said that a million times, but it is beneficial.
Well, look, let me piggyback on what you've all said. Is not all of the atheist local groups are created equal. Of course, I think there has been, what I've seen, the main thrust of groups is that it's like a skepticism in the pub kind of a situation, right? And I actually attended one once upon a time somewhere, and it was kind of like a dunking on theists group while people drank, and it didn't appeal to me at all. But so all the groups out there, if that rings true, kind of what your group does or has a tendency to do, branch out a little bit. You're all smart folks. You all care about something. You have a passion, but something that we here at the ACA like to keep in mind is that atheism is just a single answer to a single question. But what really unites us is our focus on humanism and skepticism, but mostly humanism. We care about humans here and now, alive on Earth, and as opposed to just, like I said, debunking. And so if your group is sitting around talking about how stupid theists are, or there are people who do that, because there will always be people who in atheist groups who do that, maybe remind them that there's been some pretty famous people who have said they've never gotten any smarter when they stopped believing, and then focus on the other things in our lives. On the nonprofits, yes, I plugged it, the flagship show of the ACA, we cover some would say that. Some would say, I'm going to be one of those people, one of many who say that. We cover a broad range of topics that we feel overlaps with the atheist, humanist, skeptic community, right? Human rights, workers' rights, immigrants, gender and sex, race, and all these various issues that have baggage. Our society has baggage from its religious past. And we need to, if we're going to fix the future, we can't just deconvert everybody. That's not necessarily the answer. We need to build consensus. And there's a lot of good-hearted, intelligent people who still believe, who also care about the cause of the human being. And so maybe if your group is maybe reached a dead end and there's only so many theist jokes you can make, direct yourself toward these other things that we're talking about, these other things that concern us. And you'll find maybe more people want to join, and you might get more theists involved. And then maybe they'll deconvert. Who knows?
Yeah. Debunking's, frankly, it's easy. Debunking is easy. And you can find a million channels on YouTube. You can find a million Twitter accounts. You can find all these people who can debunk till the cows come home. All right, and that's useful. It's a good thing. But it's square one. That's the starting point. Once I had this happen in my own life. I know many of our viewers and listeners are in the same position where once you debunked the beliefs, once you let go of the beliefs that you had that weren't justified, you had all of your work ahead of you in terms of figuring out what now. So and that's where the community can be essential, because you can find lots of people who did the debunk part, and they are atheists, and then they went on to be assholes. They went on to be assholes, and they did not do the humanism part. And at the ACA, I mean, that's where we talk about the mission of what we do here, being promoting positive atheism. So that's it's a worthwhile project, if you ask me, and I think Johnny too.
You know how there are politicians that'll say things like, I'm a Christian first, a Republican second, and an American. No. I'm a humanist first. I think a skeptic second and an atheist third, if I have to rank it. But like, I care about human beings, right? I think we all would say that we do. When we hear about the oppression of people in other countries who belong to different religious groups, it's oppression. Stop it, right? If you're being oppressed because you're an atheist, that's terrible. If you're being oppressed because you're a Muslim, that's terrible too. And that's on my radar as something that, like, I want to know what I can do to help out. And I think that that's maybe a good position to be in for those in our community. So,
Kaitlyn, you want the last word? What we're going to move on to some other callers.
Oh, no, yeah. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about, and I think we full circled it. So I think we're good.
Awesome. Mission accomplished. Well, thank you very much, Kaitlyn. Have a great rest of your week.
All right, you guys too. Bye.
All right.
Thank you.